Professor Tattersall, after so many years, we are still trying to understand how humans became humans. And what do we know about it, and how do you think it happened?
Becoming human is still one of the great questions confronting science. I think I know in general how it occurred. I think I know the geometry of how we became human, but how the details worked out is still not sure.
What is the geometry? What is the pattern, the general pattern?
Well, in human evolution, the tendency has been for innovations to be very sporadic, for things to change once in a very long while and to remain the same for long periods of time. This is true both for the technological history of mankind and for the anatomical history of mankind. And I think the important thing to notice is that biological changes and cultural changes have not taken place in tandem. And I think this was true for the origin of modern humans as the symbolic creatures which make us feel most different from the rest of the living world is concerned.
And what about language?
I think language is intimately tied up with the origin of ourselves as we know ourselves. The anatomical entity, that is Homo sapiens, probably had its origins between about 150 and 200,000 years ago. But the first symbolic creatures, the first creatures who gave any evidence of the symbolic capacity that makes us so different from everything else, are much younger. Those traces go back to less than 100,000 years ago in the archaeological record.
Can we be sure of the age the human appeared on the earth?
It's pretty clear, I think, right now, and obviously science is a moving target. Science is not a body of fixed knowledge, it's a body of provisional knowledge that's always being changed. And that's the essential nature of science. Right now, it looks as if the anatomical entity, Homo sapiens, came into existence between about 160 and 200,000 years ago. Symbolic creatures who disassociated the world in their brains into a mass of intellectual symbols and reassembled those symbols to imagine new worlds in their minds, only appeared on the earth perhaps 75,000 to 100,000 years ago. So the switch from a non-symbolic and I would suggest non-linguistic creature to a symbolic and linguistic creature took place long after Homo sapiens had achieved its modern morphology, its modern anatomical form. And I would suggest that the human symbolic capacity in potential was born with the very major developmental reorganization that gave rise to our species as an anatomical entity. And that the potential, the new potential, the new intellectual potential of this species remained undiscovered until it was released by some kind of a cultural stimulus. And I think that stimulus was probably the evolution of language, or the invention of language.
What about Neanderthals and other cousins we could have in the past, and how did we win in the run for adaptation?
The Neanderthals are a separate species, Homo neanderthalensis, who had an origin in common with Homo sapiens at well over 500,000 years ago. So we are cousins, in a sense, with the Neanderthals, but quite distant cousins. And the Neanderthals were creatures of a totally admirable nature and of great accomplishment. But I do not think that they had the symbolic capacity that makes humans so different from everything else.
This made the difference.
I think it was a symbolic capacity that made a difference, and I think it was a capacity that the Neanderthals, for all of their admirable features, did not have.
Thank you.